I just want to thank everyone for joining us today. We really appreciate all of you coming. It was, pretty much a year ago we were supposed to be having these workshops in person, and then everything went crazy. And so we just appreciate your patience in working with us as we tried to still hold this workshop. Ultimately, we decided to go virtual just because it's important for us to be able to get these kits, because I know probably a lot of us are slowly moving into doing in-person programming starting in the next couple months. So we really wanted to get you these kits, and then also just really wanting to say thank you for meeting with us or driving to pick up the kits. We really appreciate that. So thank you for joining the Trash Tote workshop today. I'm going to hand it over to Christina. She's our outreach specialist with Ohio Sea Grant. She's going to be the technical person helping us today because I'm really bad at technology. So Christina, if you would just take it over and just, give some people some updates on how to use WebEx and stuff like that. Thank you.
Sure. Like Jill said, my name is Christina Diakis. I'm the outreach specialist for Ohio Sea Grant and Stone Lab. I'll be in the background just, making sure everybody can hear and see everything they're supposed to hear and see. Couple of things. We'll be running a lot of the questions and non-presentation communication through the chat today. If you're not seeing a chat sidebar in your WebEx window, there's a button in the very bottom right-hand corner with a speech bubble that says chat. That will pop up that sidebar for you. If you have tech problems, anything like that, you can put a message in there. Either send it directly to me via that little drop down that probably currently says everyone. You can select my name off of that list, or just send it to everyone and we'll get that sorted out for you. Like Jill mentioned, we will be recording today's workshop just so we have an archive, and I'm assuming Jill will send that out to everyone afterwards as well. Other than that, like I said, if you have any problems, send me a chat, or I will also put my email address in the chat. You should have gotten the reminder email from me yesterday. If you're having any trouble with WebEx, let me know and we'll get that figured out. As we found out in the very beginning earlier today, you cannot rename yourself in WebEx apparently, which is very sad. But we will have a list of everyone's email addresses for later, so we'll be able to take attendance that way. But yeah, that's about all I have. Jill, if you want to take it back.
All right, thanks, Christina. So before we move into the presentations for the day, I would just like to introduce really the planning team for this project. So my name's Jill. I'm with Ohio Sea Grant, and Sue Bixler, wave. So Sue and I received funding from the NOAA Marine Debris Program. Sarah Lowe, can you wave? So Sarah Lowe is the Great Lakes Regional Coordinator for the NOAA Marine Debris Program. And so through funding from her program, we've been able to get some money to do some outreach on marine debris, specifically up on Put-in-Bay Island, and that's where this whole idea for a trash tote started. But then we did have some other funding come in from the National Sea Grant Program, and that allowed us to take these kits and be able to give them to educators across the coast of Ohio, not just in the Put-in-Bay Islands area. And so that's how this grant started. We're also doing a lot of work up on the islands with the educational partners up there, and then some of the restaurants. We've been doing a Skip the Straw campaign with them. So we've created a lot of signage on this project, a lot of outreach activities. And so this is just one part of the grant, is sharing these trash totes with educators along the coast of Ohio. So we're just really happy you could join us. Our goal is to hopefully eventually get more money to make more of these kits. If we find that they are useful and successful, you're our guinea pigs. So thank you. And eventually get these around the Great Lakes region to the other Sea Grant programs and the other educators. So that's really the goal for this project. So really quickly, I would just like to, hopefully this works, share. So you should be looking at the agenda right now. So first, we're going to have a presentation from Sarah Lowe, with the NOAA Marine Debris Program. Then we'll have Emily Kuzmic speak. She's with Old Woman Creek. And then we will have Paul Dravila speak. He's with the Ohio Clean Marinas program. And then we will end today's presentations with Sue and I talking about the kits, what we hope you will use these kits, why the items are in the kits. I know some of the items I gave you, you're probably thinking, what is this? That's what this workshop is for. And then we'll do a quick wrap up at the end. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn it over to Sarah Lowe, Great Lakes Regional Coordinator with the NOAA Marine Debris Program. She's just going to give an introduction to what is marine debris so that we're all on the same page, understanding why it is such a huge issue for us. And so that helps you understand why we need to do outreach and education on this issue. And then she's also going to talk about the Great Lakes Marine Debris Action Plan. This is just a really wonderful document that is binding all of the organizations around the Great Lakes binationally on the issue of marine debris. So many of you might be a part of it, but if it's something that you have interest in, Sarah Lowe is the person that you would want to reach out to. So Sarah, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you. And just a quick reminder, Sarah, before you get started, if you could just please turn your videos off and have yourself muted during the presentation, that just helps with some of the bandwidth issues for us. Thanks, everyone.
Video off too. It's a little jittery for me as well. So I'm going to share my screen here. All right. Can you guys see it okay? Well, let me start the presentation.
Sarah, yes, we can see your presentation and we can hear you. Thank you.
Good. All right. So as Jill mentioned, my name is Sarah Lowe. I'm the Great Lakes Regional Coordinator for the NOAA Marine Debris Program. I am actually based in Oak Harbor, Ohio, so not too far from many of you. And I'm just going to give a quick overview of the issue and talk a little bit about why we're here. So, what's this? Sorry, I was getting a warning. Okay. So just to go over the outline, we're going to talk about what marine debris is, where it comes from, why it's a problem, and then really talk about what you can explain to people and yourselves that you guys can all do about the issue. It is a little bit of a daunting problem, but there are a lot of simple things that people can do to help. And I'm also going to share some additional resources of ways that you can get involved, but also ways that are activities that are available that you can do with your audience as well in different outreach events. All right, so first up, what is marine debris? A lot of people immediately think of plastic, but marine debris is a lot more than just plastic. So we do have a definition there. I'm not going to read the whole thing. It's basically any solid man-made material that's in the marine environment or the Great Lakes. So it can be things as large as abandoned and derelict vessels, which you see in the top left there. It can be things like derelict fishing gear, so nets, ropes, lines, recreational fishing gear, and then of course plastics, which can range in all different sizes. So I'm going to talk a little bit about all of those here in a second. What marine debris is not, just to give you an example. So sometimes when I'm doing outreach events, I'll do a little quiz with people and I will say, is oil marine debris? The answer is no, because it's not a solid material. And I'll ask if like grass or vegetation or downed trees are marine debris. And again, that answer is no, because it's not man-made. So there's a little bit of confusion there. Think of it as man-made materials that are solid. So where does this marine debris come from? The ultimate answer is us humans, of course. We are the source of marine debris, but we break it down even farther to say that it comes from two basic sources. Activity on the ocean or lake, so the ocean lake-based sources, those can be things like commercial recreational fishing, offshore oil and gas, and then land-based sources, and that's probably what most people think about when they think about marine debris. So that's the littering, that's illegal dumping perhaps, poor waste management. So if there's a trash can that doesn't have a lid, for example, any stormwater discharge or extreme weather events like hurricanes. So those are just help us kind of define where marine debris is coming from to give people an idea that it's not just coming from somebody visiting the beach, for example. So I did say I was going to talk a little bit more in depth about some of the different marine debris issues. Abandoned derelict vessels is one of those. So these are commercial or recreational vessels that are either lost or abandoned. A lot of times in our ocean coast, these are the result of hurricanes, but we do have abandoned derelict vessel issues in the Great Lakes as well. They are different because they are made from a combination of synthetic materials. So lots of times they're fiberglass or metal or some other processed wood. And they do cause, obviously by their size, a lot of habitat damage, especially for anything on the bottom, so those bottom habitats. And if they are sunken or even partially submerged, they are definitely a navigational hazard as well. Derelict fishing gear, as I already mentioned, is commercial or recreational fishing gear that's either lost, abandoned, or discarded in the environment. It is made from a lot of synthetic material, so it lasts for a very long time. It never breaks down. It never goes away, I should say, and also contains a lot of time metal. And I said these are things like nets and lines. In our salty coast, they also are crab and lobster pots, which are a significant issue there. This also includes recreational gear, so things like monofilament recreational fishing line, lures, all of that as well. All right, and what most people think about when we hear the term marine debris are plastics, because that is the most common form of marine debris that we find. Plastics are non-biodegradable. They will never go away in the environment. A lot of times you'll see people using compostable plastics or some of the bioengineered plastics. We always caution people to read the fine print on a lot of those materials, especially the compostable products. A lot of those are only compostable in industrial compost facilities where they can apply a lot of heat and a lot of pressure. And unfortunately, there are not a lot of those around in the Great Lakes region. So those are likely going to landfill with all of the rest of the material, and unfortunately are acting just like any other form of plastic. They will not ever go away in that environment. So they're non-biodegradable plastics in general. They just break down into smaller pieces, which are called microplastics, and which I'll talk about in a second. There's some recent estimates that say 4 million metric tons of plastic enter the global environment every year. And there are some modeling studies that have been done in the Great Lakes region that have estimated that there are 10,000 metric tons entering the Great Lakes every year. Microplastics are plastics that are smaller than 5 millimeters in size, or the eraser head on your pencil. And they can go to be as tiny where you need a microscope to see them. So those a lot of times are called nanoplastics, if you ever hear that term. So microplastics do come from multiple sources. We kind of bin them into primary and secondary sources. Primary means they're manufactured to be that small. So these are microplastics like microbeads or the pre-production pellets, which you'll see a picture of in a second. Secondary microplastics come from the breakdown of larger plastic items over time. And then we also have microfibers, which is definitely a growing issue, a growing concern, finding them a lot more in the environment. And those come from the breakdown of textiles, from clothing and things like that. These microplastics are a huge concern for us and for the environment because they are easily ingested, and they have been found in a lot of food and in a lot of fish and in a lot of other organisms in the environment. So this is just a couple examples of some of the pictures that we have of microplastics. Microbeads there on the left, again, those are manufactured to be that small. Those are what used to be in a lot of exfoliant products. Microfibers is there in the middle. Again, those are fibers that have shed from clothing or other textiles. And then we have on the top right those pre-production pellets. Some people refer to them as nurdles. So these are, again, things that were manufactured that way, and they are what's transported around on rails, on railways and things to plastic manufacturers where they're melted down to create those larger plastic items. when those larger plastic items get in the environment, they are broken down over time, whether through wave action, through UV light, a lot of different environmental factors cause the breakdown of plastic and break those bonds and make them into smaller and smaller pieces. But the key thing here is that they never go away. They just get smaller until you can't see them, and that's not necessarily a good thing. So why do we care? Why is marine debris a problem? I've talked a little bit about some of these already. You've all seen pictures, I'm sure, of all of the different wildlife entanglement issues that we have. So the 6-pack rings with the turtle, bags, other types of fishing line entanglements, all kinds of wildlife issues there. Ghost fishing in gear continues to fish when it's lost in the environment. And that's a problem because it also creates an economic loss, for example, in fisheries. So a fisherman that goes out, sets a net, loses it, then that net continues to capture fish, but they're not able to collect that that fish, that resource. So they are losing that economic benefit as well. So that's what we call ghost fishing, when something continues to fish after it's lost. Ingestion, I already talked that a little bit. Again, that's when plastics or other items are swallowed and ingested, causes blockage or even death from starvation, because animals feel their stomach is full, and so they won't actually seek nourishment anymore. Vessel damage and navigational hazard, we talked about that with abandoned derelict vessels. Marine debris can also transport invasive species. So we saw this with some material from the Japanese tsunami in 2011. So there was some barnacles, I think, and some other organisms that hitched a ride on some floating material that came over from Japan to the west coast of the United States. So invasive species it's a transport mechanism for invasive species. Habitat destruction, that's big pieces of debris, again, smothering bottom habitats or knocking corals or other sensitive habitats, things like that. And then economic loss, I touched on the fisheries economic loss piece, but we also have tourism and recreational impacts as well. There's been some studies that have shown that here in the region as well. I did want to share with you a little bit of information about the garbage patches, just because this is the number one thing that is a hit on our website, but is also probably really close to the top of the number one thing I'm asked during outreach events. What are the garbage patches? There's a lot of confusion around the term, and people think it's a floating island of trash they can actually see. And so trying to actually clarify what that means, we do have some resources available. One of those is a trash talk video, which outlines the issue really well, and which I'm going to hit play here, and you guys can take a listen. It's just a quick, I think, 2-minute video, 2, maybe 3 minutes. Take a listen.
What is the Great Pacific Garbage Patch? Well, first, let's talk about what it's not. It's not a floating island of trash like a garbage dump or a landfill. It's also not the only patch. They exist all throughout the ocean, and the Pacific Garbage Patch just becomes famous. There's large areas of marine debris concentration that are formed by rotating ocean currents called gyres, kind of like big whirlpools that suck things in. A garbage patch is made up of tiny plastic pieces called microplastics that are less than 5 millimeters long. It's more like pepper flakes swirling in a soup than something you can skim off the surface. You might come across some larger items like plastic bottles, but it's possible to sail through a garbage patch and not see anything. And they're a big problem for the ocean and us. People often ask why we can't just scoop up all the marine debris in the ocean. And the answer is, unfortunately, it's just not that simple. The first challenge is the sheer size of these garbage patches. They're huge. They're constantly moving with ocean currents. And there's debris from the ocean surface all the way down to the sea floor. Not to mention all the marine life we would disrupt if we tried to just scoop up debris. So what can we do? Well, the ultimate solution is prevention. And we need to keep that as our highest priority. We can reduce, reuse, and recycle to keep trash out of the ocean in the first place. And we can participate in things like shoreline cleanups. It's a lot easier to deal with debris before it gets to the ocean. Because until we stop marine debris at the source, we'll just be cleaning it up forever.
All right, so that is one of our Trash Talk videos. We do have a series of them available on our website, and which I'll share the link for that here in a little bit. So there are other Trash Talk videos that cover different topics about marine debris that are great resources for use in outreach as well. I just wanted to wrap up a little bit about talking about how we all can be part of the solution and how you can message that to your audience as well. Just briefly here, as the video mentioned, prevention is the ultimate solution. So we like to use the analogy of a overflowing bathtub. Cleanup is important. You want to clean up the mess for sure, but until you turn off the tap, it's going to continue to be a problem. And so that's why we kind of use that analogy and really emphasize that preventing it from being a problem in the first place is really the key to stopping the marine debris issue. And there are simple things that everyone can do. We like to use the 4 R's. So a lot of people are familiar with the 3 R's of reduce, reuse, and recycle. We actually have a 4th R that we throw in that says refuse. So this is the idea about refusing single-use amount of waste that you're producing. So to definitely message that, we encourage people to reduce waste in your own home. So some people think that they can only help by when they're on the beach, for example, or when they're actually visiting the ocean. But actually, you can help in your own backyard, and you can help in your own home. And that's just do a couple different things. These are just examples. Stepping up recycling and composting bins if recycling is available in your area. Buying in bulk or family size to reduce the number of single-use containers that are purchased. Again, choosing reusable, so those reusable silverware and storage containers. Refusing those plastic straws or use paper straws instead. So Jill had mentioned that a lot of the businesses on Put in Bay are now doing straw upon request or using paper straws. And that's kind of this idea here where when you're at home, you're not drinking out of a straw most of the time, out of your glass, and restaurants actually probably have a lot of higher cleaning standards with their glassware and than we do at home in our own dishwashers. So it's just something that is an easy solution for people to adopt. And then the last one is just taking reusable to-go containers to restaurants, which is something that would be really valuable right now in the time we're in. Besides those different types of activities, prevention type activities, there are things that we can all do to help clean up as well. So like I said, cleanup is a piece of the solution. And so there are ways you can also collect data while you are cleaning up. So things like our NOAA marine debris monitoring protocol, we do have that available on our website if you're interested in doing some regular cleanups and providing some data. A lot of researchers have been using that to kind of get a bigger idea of the problem. Alliance for the Great Lakes has an Adopt a Beach program. That's a kind of a regular cleanup activity as well. The International Coastal Cleanup is this year on September 18th. We have the Ocean Conservancy runs the International Coastal Cleanup, and so you can find some locations that are participating there. And then lastly, the Marine Debris Tracker app is another way to contribute data while you're doing maybe a cleanup on your own. She'll mention the Great Lakes Marine Debris Action Plan. I'm going to touch on it briefly here. So there are 39 different organizations from both the US and Canada working together to tackle the issue collectively. So we're doing this over a course of 5 years. So this is a 5-year plan, and it outlines different goals and actions that these different organizations are working together to accomplish. So there are 4 goals within the action plan. So there are some actions focused on research, understanding the issue. There's some actions focused on policy and management. So making sure that we are including the management community, looking at different policies. There are actions around prevention. So again, I mentioned that's really important. So making sure that we're working to prevent debris. And then lastly, removal. So making sure that we're continuing to include volunteers and do those stewardship activities as well. So like Jill mentioned, if you want to get involved, feel free to send me an email and we can definitely talk and chat about maybe where you would like to participate. The resources, I referenced our website, so we do have a lot of different types of resources on our program website. So that's marinedebris.noaa.gov. We have activities, we have curriculum, we have different sheets you could print off, coloring sheets, or if you're doing a tabling event or things like that. And I mentioned those multimedia videos and pictures, so all kinds of different things to use. And then lastly, the Great Lakes Marine Debris Collaboration Portal. This is a website that has materials on it that are not just from NOAA, but other partners around the region that wanted to share their educational resources or outreach resources. If you click under the resources tab there, you'll see an outreach resources link, which will take you to a lot of different tabling type activities and things like that as well. And then lastly, I wanted to quickly mention our Ohio Marine Debris Challenge. It's something that we've been doing, working with Ohio Sea Grant and with Congresswoman Marcy Kaptur and Cedar Point and some other groups on for the past several years. This year, we've changed it up a little bit to be more inclusive of different ages. So in the past, it's been just high school. This year, we're opening it up to grades 6 through 12 from the Lake Erie region of Ohio. And the idea here is students are creating marine debris artwork from repurposed trash. We are closing the contest on April 9th. So this year is almost wrapped, but we would love to have your guys' help in advertising it next year as well. There are some great prizes that the students receive, so all of them get entry into Cedar Point. And in the past, we've had first place get a Stone Lab field trip. We've had tickets to give out to different tour and educational centers, and then there are also some gift bags that they receive as well. So this is a nice little activity, and with you all being in Ohio as well, I just wanted to share that and get that on your radar. With that, I can take any questions in the chat. I don't know how my time is looking, or we can answer some live as well. What do you think, Jill?
Thank you, Sarah. That was awesome. So yes, we have about 7 minutes for questions for Sarah. So if you want to put them in the chat, go ahead. Or if you want to turn your video off and unmute yourself, you can ask them of Sarah as well.
Sarah, just to add to the Marine Debris Challenge, we will be at Cedar Point representing Marine Debris Project on a stage presentation, hopefully on May 14th. So even though it's not the in-person math and science week that Sarah, Jill, and I usually participate in, Cedar Point's still making a concerted effort to try to recognize their partners. They're usually museums and other universities. And we will be on the stage. Hopefully the three of us, we're working on that to get the exemption to be there. We won't be personally interacting, but we will be there to give a short marine debris presentation and representing this project as well. And then hopefully, if we get enough of the entries that come in on the 9th, we will move forward with Marcy Kaptur to get our kids recognized. So I just wanted to add that to that last slide that Sarah just talked about.
So, any other questions?
Well, we'll have time for questions later. So if something comes to you, feel free to ask them of Sarah later or use the chat. But thank you so much, Sarah. I really appreciate you giving your presentation. So now we're going to move on to Emily Kuzmic. She's the Coastal Program the Coastal Program Training Coordinator. Did I say that right? CTP, Coastal Training Program Coordinator for Old Woman Creek National Estuarine Research Reserve. If you've never been there, it's a really beautiful area. It's just gorgeous. And we have to thank Emily and the reserve because it's halfway between where Sue and I live. So they always let us meet there to do anything marine debris. And Emily was really sweet to help Sue and I put all of these kits together this summer outside one day. So thank you, Emily. And I'll let you take it from here.
Sure, thanks, Jill. Okay, I'm going to stop my video and share my screen. Okay, I guess just let me know if you don't see it.
Emily, we can see it and we can hear you. Thank you.
Perfect. Great. Well, welcome. My name is Emily Kuzmic. As Jill said, I am the Coastal Training Program Coordinator with ODNR Oldham Creek National Estuarine Research Reserve. As the CTP coordinator, I do wear a lot of different hats, but obviously today I'm going to specifically talk about our efforts in the marine debris realm. Before that, I wanted to give an overview in case you are not familiar with the National Estuarine Research Reserve System. We are one of 29 reserves throughout the United States. We are currently one of 2 on the Great Lakes. Our sister reserve is Lake Superior in Wisconsin, actually in the border of Wisconsin and Minnesota. And the other 27 reserves are on the Oceanic and Gulf Coast, but hopefully we're looking to have some more Great Lakes representation soon. But it's really awesome being a part of this system. We are a partnership between the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, and our state agency is the Ohio Department of Natural Resources. So I'm going to go a little bit more into that, but I just wanted to say the fact that we are a part of the system is really wonderful, given that there, are obvious differences between our habitat and, say, the habitat of Kashima Bay, Alaska, or Hobos Bay, Puerto Rico. However, our 3 initiatives and focal areas remain the same, which is climate, water quality, and habitat. So it's really awesome to be able to network nationally. So like I said, our state partner is the Ohio Department of Natural Resources. Specifically, we are under the Office of Coastal Management. And like I said, we are federally associated with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. We're located in Huron, Ohio, although a lot of us are still working virtually. And this is a picture of our awesome estuary. On site, we have over 573 acres of protected land. We have an estuarine ecosystem as well as a naturally functioning barrier beach. Here we practice preservation versus conservation practices, and I always think this is really important to specify. We focus more on protection and research and natural resources rather than the consumption of them. So we do not allow fishing or the taking of any materials. We don't allow hunting unless in the past it was an ODNR controlled hunt, but we do allow permitted researching, paddling, hiking, bird watching, and the like. So our 4 sectors that are consistent across the national system are education, research, stewardship, and training. And obviously I'm going to talk about the training aspect today. So our mission at Oldham Creek is to cultivate knowledge and actions that benefit Great Lakes coastal ecosystems, some of the world's most valuable resources. Our vision is the conservation and well-being of Great Lakes coastal ecosystems. And here's a picture of our naturally functioning barrier beach, which is the site of quite a few of our marine debris cleanups. So for the coastal training program, we offer both trainings, mostly virtual now, obviously, as well as technical assistance. These are our focal areas, which are pretty consistent with our reserve management priorities. Given our focus of today's presentation, I'm going to be talking about environmental literacy, with, of course, a special focus on marine debris. But time permitting, I also wanted to highlight some of our environmental professional development opportunities that might be of interest to this audience. So in the area of marine debris, obviously, Sarah Lowe talked about the NOAA Great Lakes Marine Debris Action Plan. We are both a lead as well as a partner on multiple action strategies associated with that plan. And two of the main areas with that plan where we're listed as primary contributors are stormwater-driven land-based marine debris, as well as single-use plastics reduction. If you remember that slide where I was showing all of the different areas on which the coastal training program focuses, stormwater management is a big one. So if anyone is particularly interested in stormwater management, feel free to reach out to me. So we focus on, green infrastructure and stormwater in general, but we also focus on how land-based marine debris is a derivative of stormwater. Specific to this effort in trash tote education, we do a lot of single-use plastics reduction education and outreach. So in the past, pre-COVID, we would host in-person reduction strategies workshops. That's a picture on the lower left-hand corner of a cleanup that was associated with a workshop we hosted at a Cleveland Metro Park in Bay Village. We also focus on volunteer retention and appreciation, since a lot of our efforts are volunteer focused, and citizen science is a big part of our reserve programming as well. We are also a part of the Northeast Ohio Plastics Reduction Working Group. And that is really great because it is one of those local initiatives that we get to partner on with a lot of our entities in the Northern Ohio region. So some examples, and I actually don't know why I don't have the correct logo down here, but we worked with the Cleveland Office of Sustainability and Ocean Conservancy on their Great Lakes Skip the Straw campaign. So we focused on really shifting the lens of marine debris, not to only encompass oceanic habitats, but also let people know that this is very much a freshwater issue as well. And the list of our partners is in the lower right-hand corner. Some other plastics reduction initiatives include cigarette butts and monofilament fishing line. So these are some of our very niche, I guess, plastics reduction initiatives, and these are the pictures in the upper right-hand corner. So we focus on how we can get correct disposal as well as recycling of these specific items. So we do have some specific receptacles created for these items as well. So today I really wanted to talk about a current initiative that I'm a collaborative lead on, and that is a needs assessment for sustainability in Great Lakes restaurants and bars. And this has been a very particularly challenging but important topic in these COVID times, right? Obviously, I think everybody knows that this specific industry is very much struggling because of the pandemic. And while, for a long time, we put a hold on our conversations and our discussions with a lot of our stakeholders and end users, we realized that there is absolutely a need to address the consumption, production, and use of single-use plastics, particularly in this industry. We've had lots of conversations about how it is a perceived safety measure, and a lot of the times it's justified to have additional single-use plastics available at these places of eating, drinking, takeout, etc. However, there's been a lot of research showing that that is far beyond necessary, that there are steps we can take to actually help the overall costs as well as the environmental sustainability contribution of these businesses. So we very much wanted to frame this collaborative needs assessment in a way that was helping our businesses, right? We didn't want to, say you're having a hard time, but let's talk about environmental sustainability. We wanted to say, we know you're having a hard time. How are ways that we can address both economic as well as environmental sustainability? So our current timeline is a pilot pilot survey circulating amongst a small group of Lake Erie businesses. It is a very small group right now, so we're in the very, very preliminary stages of this pilot needs assessment. So we are planning to reconvene to discuss findings and the survey strategy, which should be in italics there, within the next month. I say that because we definitely need to focus on how we can get a greater response rate. And we anticipated, at least I definitely anticipated, this would be our biggest hurdle, given virtual burnout. Survey response is something that I think is challenging enough in times of virtual remote work. So this might actually have to be an extended timeline, but right now we're on track. We are planning for a wider distribution in about May of 2021. And then working with the NOAA Great Lakes Marine Debris Program, as well as some other initiatives actually throughout the nation, not even just the Great Lakes, throughout the whole nation. There's some really great initiatives that we will be able to work with and not reinvent the wheel, and maybe partner on and be able to see how we can collaborate more cohesively to tackle the issue of single-use plastics in this industry. We are planning to assess the survey results and feedback in about fall of 2021 as of right now. And the end goal is to match potential solutions with businesses towards the end of 2021. So we are thinking this is going to likely be a lot of source reduction, right? So making sure that, restaurants and bars aren't purchasing unnecessary amounts of single-use plastics. And thereby just decreasing the overall amount, having straws and cutlery available upon request. Once it's safe, we have vaccines coming out really promoting the use of reusable, and take what you need, and all of those initiatives that we'll be able to promote for decreasing these single-use resources in the environment, as well as, again, decreasing their overall costs. So this is just a snapshot of our paragraph that is, again, really trying to communicate that we are sensitive to the situation of this industry, and that we're in no way, turning a blind eye to the fact that they're struggling, and we want to find a way to work with them so that it benefits both business as well as environment. So let me check my time. So I do have a couple of minutes. I wanted to kind of shift gears really quick in terms of environmental literacy. Aside from marine debris, we also focus on environmental professional development. And I wanted to throw this in here because it is, I would say, this audience that is on this call today that would really benefit from these workshops if you are not familiar already. We do host a number of different workshops that are basically focusing on how best to facilitate meetings, how to design projects, how to communicate with a values-based message, so that we can actually really get to specific audiences in which a behavior change is necessary. So as the National Estuary Research Reserve, we have a close relationship with the NOAA Digital Coast. And these are just a couple of examples of workshops that we've held in the past. So they are actually free for us to host. So we've actually had a few of the attendees on this call attend some of these workshops. So if you have any questions or are looking for a specific message or a specific topic that you would like to bring to your affiliation, please reach out to me and we can get that set up for you. And this is a list of some of our partners in the bottom right-hand corner. So with that, I wanted to kind of keep it short and sweet and leave time for questions, but this is my contact information. If you do have any questions about the coastal training program, the NEARS, or marine debris, please reach out to me and I'd be happy to talk with you. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Emily. And I've attended some of the workshops Emily mentioned, and they're wonderful. They're very helpful. Does anyone have any questions for Emily? A question popped up in the chat, Emily, about extended producer responsibility. Do you want me to address that one?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Great. So there's been a question about how a lot of what we're doing focuses on putting the onus of using less plastic on consumers, which that is very true. Instead of putting some of the responsibility on producers and those creating all of this plastic and plastic packaging. So the Break Free from Plastic Act has just been introduced at the federal level in our government in the United States. It is going to talk about extended producer responsibility. It's going to require that items be made out of X amount of recycled plastic over time. So that is something that is happening in our government right now. I encourage you, I believe there was a link posted in the chat from Karen Miller from Surfrider. If you want to learn more about that act, I encourage you to go to that website and learn more about it. And then also a circular economy was mentioned. So a circular economy is something that is pretty new for us here in the United States. Canada is much farther ahead at looking at this than us. But Kathy Len put in some information about a circular economy because this is something that Cleveland is actually starting to look at. And a circular economy is basically figures out how we can reduce waste of items going to landfill. We would prefer to see items go for composting or recycling or items that can be cleaned and reused over and over again. So that's the idea behind a circular economy. So there's some great links in the chat. I encourage you to visit them. Hopefully I answered your question, and just the reason why we focus on consumers is that's really our niche. Ohio Sea Grant, Old Lehman Creek, NOAA Marine Debris Program. Our niche is to do education with consumers because we really have to avoid any type of advocacy work because we are government employees. So that's why we really don't focus on working at the producer end. We do try to work with industry and take them on beach cleanups and let them see the impact of the plastic that's being created. But like I said, our niche in this whole issue of plastic pollution is really working with consumers and students and educating people to use less plastic, because as a consumer, we have a lot of power in what we buy or don't buy. So just keep that in mind when you're purchasing things. So great links in the chat. We are going to move on to Paul because we are right on schedule, which is awesome. So Paul is going to speak on the Ohio Clean Marinas program, and he's just going to talk about some of the ways that boaters are using plastic and some of the initiatives the marina industry is taking to try to address their plastic waste, because boating is a huge sector of our economy here in Ohio. We have wonderful boating resources. So Paul, I'm going to let you begin your presentation.
Great, thank you very much, Jill. We'll share my PowerPoint. And you see that all right?
Yep, yep, we can see it in presenter mode and we can hear you great. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you. All right, so like Jill mentioned, I'm going to be giving an overview of the Ohio Clean Marina program, as well as talking about some recycling issues and initiatives. So again, my name is Paul Dravillas. I'm with the Ohio Clean Marina program, and I'm the program administrator there. And there's just a brief outline again of kind of where we're going with this presentation today. All right, so first, a brief overview of our program. So the Ohio Clean Marinas program is an educational program, and we have 82 certified clean marinas, 45 pledged marinas, and about 2,500 clean boaters. And what this means is we are encouraging these marinas and boaters into voluntary incentive-based participation in different environmental best practices. And we have a much lengthier presentation explaining all these different, the different facets of what these particular best practices are. That's not within the scope of this presentation, but that's really the core of our program is, helping these marinas and boaters voluntarily cooperate and implement these environmental best practices to help water quality. And just a cool little metric there, our program is resulting in almost 4,000 square miles of water and over 300 miles of the Ohio Lake Erie shoreline being protected, helping the water quality. And this is just a slide showing that we're not alone in this, that we are the Ohio Clean Marina Program. There's numerous others. Here are others related to the Great Lakes, and there's even more beyond that. And there's actually a network, the Clean Marina Great Lake Network, that brings us all together. So rather than competing, we actually work together and partner at the same time, although we are independent from each other. So just a little bit on why does this matter? Why do we go through this effort? Well, a few of the main reasons is one, marinas act, we like to call them the final defense before water enters our waterways. So marinas are implementing these best practices to help water quality, then we are bolstering the defense of debris getting into our waterways. This also, when we interact with marinas, it gives us the opportunity to educate on water quality, which is obviously core, at the core of marinas. It's very important to them to have clean water. And this relates to, really the balance of economy and environment. This actually ultimately helps the marina industry. And so it's mutually beneficial from an economic standpoint and an environmental standpoint for the marina industry, for boaters, for everyone. And so transitioning a little bit, that's brief overview of the Clean Marina Program, what it is, and why we do what we do. Transitioning a little bit into some of the education and outreach we provide to boaters. So the first point is we provide education to individual boaters, just explaining basically the very similar message to marinas about water quality, why is it important, how do we protect our waterways, our bodies of water, and what specific steps you can do to help with that, and just bringing that to an individual level, not to a necessarily whole marina, but to, again, specific boaters. And so we have outreach events. In a normal year, there would be many in-person events. This year has been very different. We've adjusted and provided some virtual outreach events to connect with different boaters. And we also provide educational materials, so you can see some of the pamphlets that we provide boaters, 10 ways to be a clean boater, and so on. And so this is through signage, through pamphlets, and also videos that we have created and distribute are just a few of the ways that we go about this. Just continuing on with some of this boater education and outreach we provide. So another key aspect of this is what we call the Clean Boater Pledge. So this is just a pledge that any boater can basically say, yeah, I'm going to do my part to help reduce marine debris, to help our water quality, and to participate in this. And in the bottom right screen of my PowerPoint, you can see a logo that if maybe you'll see those around Ohio. What that means when you see maybe that sticker on a boat is, yeah, they're proudly displaying that, yeah, I'm doing my part to reduce litter, reduce contaminants going into water. We also, to these clean boaters, we provide incentive items. And so there's an example in the top right of the screen. It's an oil eradicator. It's in the shape of a walleye. And so this is one of the items that we provide to a boater to help reduce contaminants, debris in the water. And finally, we directly interact with boaters to encourage this, but we also encourage and educate marinas to do the same with their boaters. So we're talking directly to boaters. We're also talking with marinas, helping them work with their boaters. And at the left image in my screen, you can see actually a list of some of the specific practices that we encourage and educate clean marinas, certified clean marinas, to take with their boaters. Just moving on into the final segment of the presentation, I'm going to talk briefly about shrink wrap recycling and sea bins. So these are a couple of specific programs and just specific activities we're taking to help educate people. And the issue, the reason that we're addressing specifically shrink wrap is it's a very common material to protect boats in the winter. And historically, a lot of this material has ended up in landfills. So basically, we decided we're going to try and figure out a way to recycle this material. And what that comes down to is simply connecting boaters and marinas with recycling facilities that'll take that, and also educating boaters and marinas on why this is important and how do you actually just practically go about this. And so this has become more challenging in recent years. The recycling industry as a whole, it's become less economically feasible to do this. So it's become more difficult, but it's still a goal and something we're trying to do. And a couple of specific measures we take with that are, we have a list of shrink wrap recycling options that we provide, and we've also created a video that walks you through this process, and you can see an image of the list of recycling options on the left, and just a screenshot of the video, which you can find at the link there, which is online. You can just type that into the internet, Ohio Clean Marina shrink wrap recycling, and find that there. And finally, I will just briefly mention this idea of sea bins, which is a trash skimmer that basically helps collect debris that's already in the water, and it brings it into that vessel there. You can see it at the top right of my screen. And so this is a new exciting piece of technology. It's been implemented effectively elsewhere, and we're basically working together with Jill and others, talking about what does this look like to bring it into Ohio and implement in different bodies of water. So this is kind of a new frontier, something that's being practiced more elsewhere, and we're trying to get in on it ourselves and trying to help place more of these around Ohio. So those are just a few of the practices and measures we're taking, and I'm going to leave it at that. So thank you all for listening. Feel free to comment or speak up with any questions. And there's just my contact information there. Email for our program, Ohio Clean Marinas at osu.edu, if you want more in-depth information. We also have a web page online and a Facebook page, Ohio Clean Marinas, Clean Boaters. You can follow us at. So thank you again, and I'll stop there.
Thank you so much, Paul. And the Ohio Clean Marinas program is just a wonderful program. So if any of you are boaters or, are at marinas, please feel free to reach out to Paul and that program. Also, just to mention that it is a statewide program, so they can work across the state, which is really exciting, because some of us, just the way we're funded, we're only able to work in the Lake Erie watershed. So Paul, there were a couple questions. Sarah has answered them in the chat, but we have time. the rat cards you were talking about, is there one that is focused on fishing line or marine debris?
To my knowledge, I don't think we have one that's specifically just focused on only marine debris, but they just give a more general overview of, yeah, clean boat or measures you can take. I know Sarah also is obviously commenting. If Sarah, you can feel free to chip in if, I don't know if we have, if you know of any specific educational materials that you'd best recommend related to that.
Well, we've been talking in the chat, Paul, and I think, so we have a grant meeting in a couple weeks. I think we're going to talk about maybe using some of our grant money to create something like this because we think it's a wonderful idea. So thank you for that idea. Paul, there was another question. So you know the shrink wrap that goes around the boats. Is there a reusable option instead of the single-use plastic shrink wrap?
Yes, so there is a reusable option, and obviously it might be a slightly larger financial investment, but it from a environmental sustainability standpoint, it's worth it to use a reusable cover. Yeah.
Awesome. And then there was a question. So there are, Paul talked about the sea bins. I guess there are 2 sea bins that are being installed in the city of Toledo. So that's really exciting. I'm thinking maybe we need a field trip to Toledo because really a goal of Ohio Sea Grant and the Clean Marinas program is to get sea bins in marinas along the coast of Ohio. But we've never actually seen one. So it would be awesome to connect with Toledo to see one. And then there's other trash skimming technology that's coming out on the market. So this is just something we're aware of. Again, it's not the solution to the problem, but it is a really great way for us to clean up the trash that's floating in the water, which is something that's usually very hard for beach cleanup volunteers to get. All right. Well, if there's any other questions for Paul, please go ahead and put them in the chat. And we're going to move into talking about the trash tote. So if you have your trash tote with you, I encourage you to get it. So if everyone wants to take a couple minutes, go get your trash totes and we'll meet back here. And for this part, I think we can put our videos back on and see each other as we work through the trash tote. So if you want to put your video on, go ahead. If not, that's okay. All right, I see some faces. Hello, everyone. All right. So this part moving forward, Sue and I didn't create a PowerPoint for this. We wanted this just to be a little bit more interactive. So if you have your trash totes with you, awesome. We're gonna go through all of the items in them. And I'm just gonna kind of be showing you some stuff, talking about why we put it in there, what we anticipate you might do with it. And so that's the purpose of this next session. So yes, Christina. So if you could let everyone know how they need to do that so that I'm large on their screen.
Yeah, so if you're currently seeing a bunch of smaller squares, in the top right corner of that bunch of smaller squares, there's a layout button that will pop up, and you can either do focus or stage. Either one will set your screen to the person who's talking, so that will help with making Jill a little bit more visible.
Okay. All right. Well, hopefully I'm showing up on your screen. If not, feel free to reach out to Christina. She can help you figure that out. So we're going to be talking about the trash tote. So everyone should have received these. we were able to give every program one. We've actually given them all away, which is really exciting. We did keep a few of them for Sea Grant, and we are going to have them to loan out for free to teachers or anyone else who needs them. So if anyone contacts you and you're unable to loan yours out because you're using it, please have them contact one of us, and later we'll have some contact information for everyone. So this is the big canvas bag. As you can see, it's in a tote bag. That's why it's called the trash tote. Sue and I were really excited with ourselves when we came up with this name. So they're pretty big. You know, the joy of buying online, we got huge ones. So feel free to put whatever else you want to put into them. So that's why we made them so big. So the idea is that you'll store everything in here. It's easy to carry when you're going to outreach events. This kit was created by Sue and I. Sue was a formal teacher in schools, and then she joined Stone Lab as our education specialist. And so we know it's really important to have stuff be easy to carry when we're going to outreach events. So there's the bag. Then you should have received a folder. I'm going to talk about the reporting sheets at the end, so don't worry about those right now. Like I said, this was created as part of a grant on Put in Bay, so we did create this little fact sheet that just talks about plastics use up at Put in Bay, simple solutions you can take. We do have a plan of making this not just Put in Bay specific, so a plastics reduction fact sheet is in the works. There should also be a laminated sheet in that folder on how to make your own beeswax wrap. The idea with an in-person event is we were going to do this with everyone. Unfortunately, that did not happen. We do have all of the supplies for it. So we hope to do this with kids in the future, or if you want to hold the event and you don't have the funding to buy the supplies, please just let me know and I'm happy to give you some of the supplies that we have. We chose not to put beeswax wrap in the kits because it's very expensive to buy. But also we thought it could be a really fun activity to do with people because it's so easy. You can personalize it yourself. And if you're not, I should have grabbed my beeswax. Maybe when Sue's giving her presentation, I'll run downstairs and grab mine, but it's a great product. And I really do enjoy using it in my kitchen. So those are the items in the folder. And like I said, we'll talk about the reporting sheets at the end. Okay. Then you should have received these. So these we created for another kit called a trash trunk, which I will be talking about later as well. These were created in partnership with Wisconsin Sea Grant and Michigan Sea Grant. And they're just information cards about marine debris. And so the first one, it talks about the impacts of marine debris, which Sarah mentioned in her presentation. And a lot of these we modified from the No Marine Debris program and used their images because they just did such a nice job. The next one talks about the common types of microplastics or of plastics. So we talk a lot about recycling, especially right now, because it's just kind of totally collapsed. And a lot of people are like, well, if it's in the little triangle with the number, it's recyclable. No. The only thing that tells you anymore is it just tells you what type of plastic it is. We do not go by these little triangular numbers anymore. We pretty much for plastics, the only plastics that can be recycled are plastic bottles and plastic jugs. You can recycle plastic bags, but those need to be taken to a clothing store like Kohl's or Walmart or something like that, or the grocery store who does plastic film recycling. And I just learned, I did an interview with Karen Miller at the Cuyahoga County Solid Waste District, and I learned that we actually only recycle 1% of the plastic bags in our area. So it's a pretty sad number. So we encourage people to use reusable. Then it talks about microplastics. These are some really nice images so people could see what these things look like under a microscope. Also, you should have received, and we'll talk about these in a little bit, but a Tupperware container of microplastic examples. So that's really exciting. Then we talk about the top 10 items we find internationally. So it's so important that we do beach cleanups because we get all this really important information about what we're finding. And when we find stuff, then we can say, oh, we need to go talk to the people using these items and say, these items are being commonly found on beach cleanups. We need to either change how we dispose of them or use reusable items. So that's why we put the international items, and this information comes from the International Coastal Cleanup, which Sarah mentioned is going to be in September this year. So that's hosted by the Ocean Conservancy, and they always do a really nice job every year putting together some nice infographics and metrics about what they find at the international level. Then we also, because so much of what we find out there is ocean focused, we really wanted this kit to talk at the international and ocean level, but also talk about freshwater because we are often left out in a lot of the education. That's changing, but we really wanted to talk about the Great Lakes in this because most of us, when we go to education events, we're talking to people who live along the Great Lakes. So we want to know that marine debris is also an issue in our backyard. It's not just something that's in the Pacific, garbage patch. So we've also put in the top 10 items that we find on the Great Lakes. And some of these are similar to what's found at the international level, but some of them are different. So for us, plastic pieces, that's the #1 item for us that you're going to find. I don't know if any of you have done a beach cleanup before, but you can spend an hour looking at this little patch of sand pulling out microplastics, and it's just like, ugh, the most boring thing ever, but it's very important that we keep doing that work. Also, we put in litter composition by water body for the Great Lakes. So it'll tell you what is being found at the other Great Lakes. So for us here on Lake Erie, 93% of what we find on our beaches is plastic. But if you go to Lake Michigan, it's only 89%. So if you do more formal education, you could work with the students to do comparisons with these pie charts or something like that, or maybe try to figure out why we have more plastic than some of the other beaches. We have a lot of plastic here in Lake Erie because we're the 4th Great Lake, so all the other Great Lakes drain into us. Lake Ontario has the most, but compared to all the other Great Lakes, we have the most people around our lake. We have a lot of urban area, and urban areas lead to sewers and storm drains, and those go directly into the lake. So that's why we have so much plastic here in Lake Erie. Then the next one is going to be litter composition by state. So this is just showing you what states, because several states, sometimes countries, may border a Great Lake. So we wanted to talk about it as states as well. And so this is also some, if you're working with students, doing some math or calculations and stuff around these graphs. So we really wanted these to be tools that you could either just have out on a display table and people could read them, or you could somehow incorporate them into, a spiel you're giving at an outreach event. Whenever I do a beach cleanup, I always give background information on the problem. We don't just go to a beach and pick up trash. I talk to people about why it's an issue and what we can do. And we thought these cards would be a really great resource so you could have some visuals for people. Then we talk about, okay, so we've talked about the issue, we've talked about the local context, we've talked about the global context. Now we have to focus on solutions. So yes, beach cleanups are very important, but there's a lot of other actions we can take. So that's why we have the 10 things you can do to be plastic free. So these range from things that are free, for example, making sure that the lid is on your trash can and animals can't get into it or it's not going to blow away. Refusing items, it doesn't cost any money to say, I don't need a straw. That's totally free. But then it is talking about some of these reusables. So reusing your bags, using a reusable water bottle, which yes, are more costly up front, but in the long run, they do save you money. And then Sarah mentioned the 4 R's. We got a little bit more excited and we did the 8 R's. So it just talks about, we have to retrain our brains. Our society has become so obsessed with single-use plastics because they're so convenient. And that's why we use it so much. So we need to retrain our brains to inconvenience ourselves a little bit and, you know, maybe give us ourselves a little bit more work, but ultimately it's better for everyone. So you can read through these R's with people, and it just kind of makes them rethink about how they go through life and how they use the items that they have. And I see a question. Yes, please take pictures of these and I'll do you one better. I will just send you the files and you can print away. I also do have a few extras of these. I have 5 of them. So if you need more, or someone approaches you like a teacher and says, hey, I really want this in my classroom, please reach out to me. And I'm sure we could always get more printed. For, you know, we'd have to pay for it, but we'll figure out a way to get more of these to people if needed. So those are the information cards. So next, we're going to talk about the trash items. So Sue spent a lot of time picking up trash on the beaches. So thank you, Sue. So everyone should have a jar of trash. And so yes, this is all trash. This is not clean. It's dirty. So I just encourage you to leave it in here. Or if you're going to touch it, use tongs or something. But the idea is the trash in here is just it's a good representation of what we find on a beach cleanup. So as you can see, it's going to be mostly plastic. So again, this is an activity you could do with children, you know, counting the plastic items in here, you know, categorizing them by color, by shape, by size, by material. There's all sorts of stuff you could do with this. I mean, if you want, you could dump this in a tub and do like an in classroom or at the table mock beach cleanup or something like that. There's so many things you can do with this, but really just showing people that this is what we're finding on beach cleanups, and that the majority of it is plastic. And it also does a really nice representation of showing how plastics fragment and break down, because it's really important that we educate people that they do not decompose, they do not become useful nutrients, they break down into smaller and smaller pieces of plastic. And then we now have in our containers our microplastic examples. So the first one I'm going to talk about is going to be the pellets. So these are pre-production pellets. This is plastic in its virgin form. So this is what plastic looks like before it gets molded and shaped into whatever you need. So these are the pellets. I am going to warn you that the lids on the jars are a little wonky. So if you are never going to open these, I encourage you to glue them together. But if you want to open them to dump into something like a little, I use little Petri dishes that I can then put under a dissecting scope so we could look at these more up closely. That's, you know, something we thought you could do with this. Then we have nurdles. So nurdles are the same thing. They're just the educator the word for pre-production pellets, but these ones were actually taken off the beach. And so you can see the different colors, the different shapes, but you can also see the amount of stuff on them. So you can see that they're going to be discolored from algae or bacteria starting to grow on them. And something I learned recently is the reason birds actually eat plastic is because the algae that grows on plastic actually smells like food to them. I did not know that. So that's something you could talk about right here. Also, you can see that some of this stuff may look like rocks. It could look like pieces of sand. So it's just really hard to tell this stuff from what's naturally supposed to be there. Then we have our microfoams. So these are going to be things that come from styrofoam, buoys, and these are obviously going to float because it's foam. So you can show that to people. Then we have our fragments. So this is going to be large pieces of plastic items that have broken down into smaller items. So we tried to give everyone a really nice selection of colors and shapes and sizes. And a fun activity to do with this is to be like, what was the fragment before it was a fragment? Was it a lot of times they were plastic bottle caps. You can see the ribbing. But that's like a fun activity to do with kids. And feel free, if you find more stuff, go ahead and add it. We collected as much as we could. Then I'm going to move on to the fibers. So that's from my lint dryer. I wear a lot of plastic clothing. I'm sorry. I'm saving up for a filter for my washing machine. I'm sorry there's going to be dog hair and human hair in there, but that's just how it is. So these are going to be plastic fibers. You are going to notice that there's a cigarette filter in there. A lot of people think cigarette filters are cotton. No, they are cellulose acetate, which is plastic made from plants, and they are a microfiber. So we do like to do education with the smoking community because cigarettes are one of the #1 items found on beach cleanups. And so there's a few other items in the kit we have for smokers, but this one is for people who smoke. And a lot of times they're really receptive. They don't know that cigarette butts are an issue. And when you talk to them, they feel really bad and change their practices. So they're a very receptive community. So I do encourage you to talk to smokers when you're at your outreach events. Then you'll have the micro beads. So micro beads are no longer in toothpaste, shampoo, or body washes. They are in other products. You're looking for polyethylene or polypropylene, so things like makeup and deodorants, you still find plastic in them. You're going to want to look for the blue beads in there. So the larger blue beads came from a body wash, and the smaller blue beads came from toothpaste. This is stuff that I've had for years. It's like gold to me now because you can't buy it anymore, which is a good thing. But so you want people to be looking for the blue. And microfibers and micro beads are really best seen under a compound microscope on a slide. So if you have microscopes available to you, there are handheld microscopes. You can actually also use your cell phone and just zoom. People can see the beads and fibers a little bit better. And then we put a cigar tip in there. So cigar tips are unique to us here in Cleveland and Toledo in urban communities. So cigar tips are the plastic tips that get put on what's called a little cigar or a cigarillo. We find these in huge abundance on our beach cleanups, more than any of the other Great Lakes. And it's just because we have urban centers where cigarillos and little cigars are frequently used, and then they're using the plastic cigar tip. So that's why we included a cigar tip, because it's a unique item for us here in Ohio. Another item we probably should have included, and hopefully some of you got them, but right here, this is a shotgun wad. So when you shoot a shotgun shell, the colorful shotgun shell falls near you. The shotgun wad goes out. I don't know much about hunting, but I just know it goes far away from you. And shotgun wads are another item that we find a lot of, especially in our Oak Harbor, Ottawa County area where there's a lot of duck hunting. So shotgun wads and shotgun shells are another item that's a bit unique to us here in Ohio.
Bill,
And
I think I put a shotgun one in everybody's jar. I tried.
thank you, Sue. We find a ton of these on our Put-in-Bay beach cleanups. We find them in the hundreds. So those are going to be our microfibers. So we included them so people could have examples. They could, move it around, see what this stuff looks like. And like I said, if you have the access to a microscope, I encourage you to put them under a microscope so people can see them. All right. Then we're moving on now. So we've talked about the issue. We've introduced the issue, whether this is at a presentation you're doing or your display table and you have everything out. Now we're going to move on to solutions. So the first solution is beach cleanup. So you should have received a backpack. And this has a limited supply of beach cleanup items. The idea is this is enough just to get you started. If you need to do more, we have items we are happy to loan out to you, so you can just reach out to us. So the first thing in here is going to be reusable gloves. So you can use disposable gloves, but we're kind of trying to pick up all this plastic, and it's kind of weird when you go out there and then use a bunch of single-use trash bags and disposable gloves. So we switched to reusable gloves. I do then wash them. Unfortunately, they are plastic. So like I said, I got to get my microfilter on my washing machine so that I can capture my microfibers. So there's gloves in there, different sizes. The black gloves are going to be a larger size than the pink gloves. Also, we found that these work really well when scooping up plastic items, so you can just scoop them up. The sand should sift out, and then the plastic items should remain behind, and then you can just kind of do a scoop and dump instead of trying to sift out every single plastic piece. We've also included pasta tongs. So we really like these because at least where we've been doing cleanups out in Put-in Bay, sharp metal cans, glass, and syringes are a safety concern for us. So that's why we have these to pick up syringes. And to go along with that, you should have a container. And I mean, I just save plastic containers from food for my sharps containers, but you need to put any syringes, sharp glass, or sharp metal in a sharps container. They don't have to go to biohazard. They can just be put in here and then disposed of. But you don't ever want to put a syringe just in a plastic garbage bag. That's a huge safety concern. And you don't ever want to pick up a syringe with just your hands. You need to use tongs because we do a lot of cleanups with kids. So that's just a safety concern. We did include some plastic bags because yes, eventually the trash does need to go in a plastic bag. But what we like to do is when we're cleaning up the items, we like to put everything in buckets. And then we just dump all the buckets in one bag at the end. That's our goal. Then if you're doing a cleanup event, you're going to have to weigh what you clean up. And it's cool, you know, and like I said, you could do some math calculations about how much poundage you're getting. So we included manual luggage scales so that you can just hook your plastic bag to this and weigh how much you've taken off the beach. Hopefully you'll be collecting data as well. So the tracker app, the Adopt a Beach, those are places that collect data on what is found on beach cleanup. So we encourage you to download their data cards or download the app so that you can track everything you're finding. And then we did just include just some safety cards talking about dangerous items that can be found on beach cleanups. And then just the difference between shotgun shells and shotgun wads, because at least for us, people pick up shotgun wads or the cigar tips and they're like, what is this? But now you have examples. So that is the beach cleanup supplies. Like I said, it's not a ton, but it's just enough to get started. Okay, then we're moving on to the reusable items. So another way to use less plastic is to stop using the single-use stuff, but to switch towards reusable items. So the ideas were we would do when we go shopping. So when we go shopping, we want to use a reusable bag instead of a plastic bag. They are also talking about a bag ban at the national level. That's in that EPR law that is going through Congress. So we could be looking at a federal bag ban, which would be very exciting. Unfortunately, we do not have any bag bans here in Ohio. We had one in Cuyahoga County for about 2 months. And then COVID hit, and now the governor has paused any type of bag ban regulation through September of this year. Then produce bags. So a lot of people don't know produce bags, but in the research I've done with grocery stores, produce bags are their #1 wasted plastic item. People just pick them up and throw them on the floor. So it's really important if you can use cotton produce bags that you just wash when you come home, instead of using all those single-use plastic produce bags, that would just be huge. So that's kind of a new item for people that they don't really think about. So that's when you go to the grocery store. Then we thought about, uh-oh. Can you still see me? Sorry, my screen went blank. The lunchbox. So another part of our lives where a lot of single-use plastics are used is going to be when we eat. And so that's why we included the lunchbox. So having a reusable lunch tote. If you're a person who has sandwiches, they make reusable sandwich bags. They're not that expensive. And if you think how much single-use plastic like Ziploc bags cost, this is a huge cost savings. So we have examples of those. If you're going to be drinking anything, use your reusable water bottle. Storing stuff in reusable containers. You don't have to go buy these. If you get glass jars, just reuse those glass jars to store food. That's another great way to store stuff. using a reusable napkin. Yes, paper napkins are paper, but still trying to move away from all single-use items is important. Then we've got straws. So there's bamboo straws with the straw cleaner if you're someone who enjoys using a straw. Cups. And then I think we have even more straws for you. We just had lots of straws to give away. So some metal straws. So just giving people examples of the reusable items that are out there. And then lastly, here is just like a food kit. And it does include a toothbrush. Now, we didn't really go too much into beauty products. That's a whole nother conversation, but it does include a toothbrush so you can show people what a bamboo toothbrush is. Now, unfortunately, the things like bamboo toothbrushes, toothpaste bites, those are going to be more expensive items. So you do need to let people know about that. And then lastly, we talked about, did you give everyone tattoos too, Sue? I have tattoos in mine. Nice. Cigarette items. So this is a pocket ashtray. So the idea is they would put this in their pocket or their bag. It's lined so that if there's still heat coming off the cigarette, it's not going to burn through their pockets. But they could put their cigarette butts in here. This is a car ashtray, so it goes in your cup holder. You throw your cigarette in there instead of flicking it out the window. So this is meant to go in a cup holder. So those are the items we had for smokers. Any question on what's in the trash tote? All right. So I'm just gonna read through comments. Yes. Are there any questions that came up on the trash tote?
Jill, there's the small mesh bag that's in there. Did you address?
That is for the Gifts of Lake Erie for bows.
Making sure that we covered what that was.
Yeah, so the small mesh bag, the charts, that is going to be for the Gifts of Lake Erie, which Sue's going to talk about. What is the sparkly bag? Yes, we're getting to the sparkly bag.
I figured that was going to happen.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, so the
What
charts,
is this one again?
that's
I missed that.
the pocket ashtray.
Gotcha. Okay, and then this one is for the car. Thank you.
Cart. Yep.
Cool. Thanks.
All right, so I'm going to let Sue take it over now. She is going to talk about the box you received, the sparkly bag, and the charts. And so this is called Gifts of Lake Erie. It was something I saw several years ago that was called Gifts of the Sea. It was developed by Biscayne National Park, and we decided to adapt it for us here up in the Great Lakes. All right, Sue, I'm going to mute myself. And Christina, if you could just make sure that Sue is going to be the large video now.
Yeah, it should switch to her once she starts talking.
Can you hear me? Is everybody hearing me?
Yeah, Sue, we're hearing you and we can see you clearly too.
Okay, so I decided to stand up to do this. Thought it might be a little easier. So you guys received the big box, looks like this, and kind of a pain to follow the instructions, but we thought that was a little easier way to do that. And then in your trash tote bag, you got posters. These are old posters from the Sea Grant office that we brought back from Columbus. They were going to be discarded, and we thought, why not wrap our boxes to make our boxes look a little bit better? So as you can see, I wrapped my box. It's different charts, basically surrounding Lake Erie waterways. And then I even covered my lid because that's the kind of thing I do, is always like to make sure everything matches. So I did my lid. Jill, the sparkly bag is bows. I'm not necessarily a bow person, but you've got bows that you can apply to that and make it look nice. So what is the Gifts of Lake Erie? So the gifts there. Thank you, Jill. So the Gifts of Lake Erie is kind of a way for you to take this trash tote and build on it. You can use some of the things that are in it. You can turn it into a lesson. Being a formal educator, I get all excited about this type of thing because it can lead you into a variety of different ways to address marine debris and what Lake Erie gives us as a gift and what Lake Erie is showing us it has that we don't want there. So to give you an example, I kind of filled my box with some various items, and what I like to do is I take it's just an old piece of cardboard, but I make a divider so that when I'm actually working on the lesson, I've got the gifts that I don't want on one side and the things that Lake Erie is giving us on the other. So examples of things that you may want to share with your students or even formal, informal educators are some things you might find. So for example, like a piece of driftwood, would I pick this up on the beach or would I want to leave this? I would leave this. But opposed to that, and I always grab this because I found this on the beach, here's a piece of treated lumber. And so that takes you into a discussion oftentimes with kids, what you want to pick up and what you don't want to pick up. Different things that I throw in my box, and I'm gathering these, and we will get these to you. This is the American Lotus seed pod. Jill doesn't get these on her end of the lake. I get them down here by Toledo. And it's kind of an interesting item to throw in there. People don't know what it is. You can kind of lead into a discussion about what it is and that it is a gift and how this particular plant, you can go. I actually, Pennsylvania Sea Grant has made a very nice article about the American Lotus, and we can get you that, or you can go online and find that, and that will help you bring in a discussion too about what this plant is and how the seed pod helps it reproduce. So there's different things you can go into. Jill and I talked beach glass. Technically, beach glass is marine debris, but it's something people like to pick up. So it's kind of a topic of discussion. You can get into how it got there, why it really shouldn't be there, but that people still enjoy it for jewelry, make pictures from it. So that's kind of an interesting topic of discussion. So I put beach glass in mine. Something that you may want to stay away from. This is my friend. This is Leonard. So this is one of Stone Lab's captive colony snakes. And so kids are going to, if you're doing a beach cleanup, oftentimes stumble across something like this. So it can bring you into a discussion about animals. Yes, this is a gift of Lake Erie. Leonard is a riparian snake that you find only in certain pockets along Lake Erie. And so Leonard would be something we'd want to sit back and admire, but we would want to tell those kids, hey, you don't want to pick it up. Let's just step back, take a look, and know that Leonard is a special gift, but let's not pick him up. So there's different things that you can do to allow yourself to kind of incorporate a variety of different topics. I actually have a stuffed copepod here that may bring you into what you might find in a drop of water. So I have that in there as a gift of Lake Erie for me. Might find molts of animals. Here's actually an eastern fox snake molt. So that might be something the kids might pick up. Shells. I threw in, this is a Petoskey stone that I actually found along Lake Erie, not in Lake Michigan. So that's in there. That can bring you into a geology conversation. And then some items that I find quite a bit on beach cleanups around here, and some that really bother me, and this allows us to go to a different direction as well, is the balloons. Found this on a beach cleanup not too long ago. And a lot of times they're released like as a memorial tribute. You don't ever want to be insensitive to what people are doing, but you also want to tell that when they come up, they also come down. So sometimes it's a good way to open up that conversation. Our fishermen, I find a lot of empty bait containers. That's something that we want to talk about. And then this is a new item. Of course, this one's clean. I didn't get it on a beach cleanup, but we're finding a lot of discarded masks. So that's starting to be a topic of conversation as well. Safety is important. We do need to wear our mask now that we're in the situations that we're in, but they also need to be disposed of properly as well. Of course, the plastic items, the plastic pieces. And one thing I did say to Jill was your gift of Lake Erie box, this might be dual purpose for you because you can actually take some of the things that are in here and put them in to your kit saying, and we're trying to save you work going out and picking things up. Hey, these are some things that we do not want on the beach. So if you want more of a lesson plan type approach, this gift of Lake Erie box allows you to pick and choose positive things that can take you different directions on topics, and then the negative things that allows you to open up that conversation. So the gift of Lake Erie, Jill and I just kind of adapted it to what we thought we could use and how we can use that as a informal lesson, but allows us to go a lot of different directions. So Gifts of Lake Erie, that's your box, that's your charts, and then you saw how Jill put her bow on it. So hopefully this kind of ties together everything that we've put in that kit for you.
Thank you, Sue. That was wonderful. And hi, Leonard. So like Sue said, really these two items we've given you are to use however you see fit. Feel free to add to them, adapt them. Really, we were just trying to give you some tools so that you could have examples when you're talking to people about the issue of marine debris. So Christina, I'm going to go ahead and share my wrap up PowerPoint. Is that okay?
You should be able to do that, but let me make you the presenter real quick to make sure.
Okay. All right, I'm the presenter. 1 second. So do you see my presentation and can you hear me?
Good.
Okay. So reporting. So you've been given some reporting sheets in that folder in the trash tote. The first one where it's got the blue, that's your trash tote reporting. So because this is part of a grant, because this is a new education tool for us, we would really just like to see how it's being used, how many people are you reaching. So every time you do an event, I encourage you, I'm going to put my trash tote one in my trash tote, and I'm going to put my Gifts of Lake Erie one in my Gifts of Lake Erie box. I'm actually just going to tape it to the top of my lid, and then just have a pen with you in there. And if you can just record the date and then the location, so city and state as best you can, and then just the number of people you're speaking to. So for our reporting purposes, we break down students, educators, resource managers, and then just general public or coastal residents. If you want to break it down even farther, if you need this for your own reporting, that's fine. And then just the total number of people spoken to. And if you would do this for both of these kits, we'd really appreciate it. I will be reaching out to you in probably September once we start to wrap up the outreach season. Now, I fully understand that outreach is going to look still, again, very different this year. So please do not feel obligated to do in-person programming just to get us information. Please, if you're using these in outreach events, please capture that information. And then I will just ask you to scan the sheets back to me, or if you have a digital file, get them back to me in September. We will also be sending out a survey to those of you on this call today, just about the tote, what worked well, what could be improved, additional items to add. Really just trying to think, is this an educational tool that we need to make more of? And, is it worthwhile for us to spread it, around the Great Lakes region?
Jill, just to piggyback on that a little bit, we didn't mention the signage. There's 2 signs that I delivered.
Oh.
And along with it, and you did as well. One is the bag sign, the other is the cigarette butt sign. I just wanted to throw out there that we have a lot of the cigarette receptacles, because the sign basically says dispose of your butt here. Is there a way that people could reach out to us if they would like the actual cigarette disposal canister? They were over at Put-in-Bay when I delivered mine, and so I didn't have what I needed to get to my people.
Yes, thank you for mentioning that, Sue. I completely forgot about the signs. So really quickly, the first one is the plastic bag sign. That just talks about the importance of using our own bags. I do have extra of those signs if you would like some. The idea is that they get put in places like grocery stores or shopping centers so people could learn a little bit about why bags are an issue. The other one is the cigarette sign that I was giving to people if they had land that they manage. We have cigarette receptacles that we can give you as well. And then for those of you, our island partners, we had specifically Put-in-Bay signs that we gave to you that just talked about the issue of plastics at Put-in-Bay specifically. So as far as the extra information cards go, like I said, I have 5 of these. if you need more or someone contacts you and would really like one, please reach out to me and I will find a way to get you an extra set of these cards. I mentioned trash trunks a little bit ago. So the trash trunk was created almost in partnership with the trash tote, I guess. They were going to be called trash totes, and we said we already have a trash tote. So Sue came up with the clever idea of a trash trunk. As you can see, it's in like a trunk, which, you know, just makes it all the more exciting. And this is going to have some of the same items that are in the trash tote, but it's taking it one step further. And as you can see, there's an educator's guide in there. So this is taking curriculum on marine debris from all different programs. NOAA Marine Debris Program, Alliance for the Great Lakes, Sea Grant, and it puts it in here into an educator's guide and then gives you some of those tools you need to conduct you know, the activities associated with this curricula. So we have 3 of these available for loan for free in Ohio. As you can see on the right side, depending on your area, please reach out to that person and they'd be more than happy to get a trash trunk to you if needed. And this is something that we're going to be putting a press release out about this soon, and so hopefully we'll reach more educators across the coast.
Hey, Jill.
Yes.
There's one quick question related to that about, are those educational guides correlated to state standards?
Yes. Yes, all of the curriculum that is in the educator's guide has been correlated to state standards. Now, I don't know if it says it in there. I can look and get back to you. Whoever asked that question, I will look. If you're wanting just even more information on plastic pollution in the Great Lakes, Ohio Sea Grant, in partnership with the University of Toronto, is hosting a webinar on April 9th from 11:30 to 1. You can still register. I'm happy to send that registration information out. So Sue and I will be talking more in detail about the Skip the Straw and Ban the Bag research and grants that we've been doing. And then Dr. Chelsea Rockman will be talking about the issue of microplastics in the Great Lakes. And a lot of her research focuses on aquatic organisms, so macroinvertebrates and fish. So if you want more information on that, I highly encourage you to join this webinar. She's a wonderful wealth of information, and I always learn something whenever she presents. And then if there are any other questions in regards to trash totes, marine debris programming with Ohio Sea Grant, please feel free to reach out to Sue and I. We're more than happy to connect you to resources as best we can. And then if you ever need to, you know, reach out to the Ohio Sea Grant program for anything, all of our contact information is there on the right side of the page. All right. So I'm just going to quickly look through the chat. Loaning the kit. Yes, so I actually have my trash trunk and my extra trash tote loaned out to teachers right now. I've loaned out a lot of materials to teachers and they're usually really good about bringing them back. That's what these kits were created for. So please loan them out to teachers if you feel comfortable doing so, or connect them to Sue, Sarah, or I, and we will get kits into their hands. I will find out about the educator guide. Let me make a note of that. I know it is in digital form. I just need to make sure that it is something I can share. And I will also send the digital files for the information cards that we provided. So I'm just making a note for that. Yeah, so please, this is questions. So if you have questions, feel free to unmute yourself, or I'm going to keep looking through the chat as well.
Hey, Jill, I did just post the trash trunk link where all the digital resources for the trash trunk are available.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Sarah. So yes, if you go to the link, it's the seagull.org resources trash trunk. There will be digital resources there. I will go through and see exactly what's included, but I can still send digital copies to people as well. Oh, it looks like the Toledo Zoo has a program on April 24th. That sounds fun. Party for the Planet. I like that. And then also Nerdle Patrol. Yeah, Nerdle Patrol is they're on Facebook. They're really fun to follow. But they do a lot around nurdles And they sometimes have Nerdle educator kits as well available for people. So I encourage you to follow them on Facebook. And if you ever are out there doing beach cleanups, they always love to see people posting about beach cleanups and Nerdles and stuff like that. All right. Are there any other questions that people have? Okay, well, we're going to go ahead and wrap up. We're going to be a little, oh, and then also Surfrider has a lot of beach cleanups planned for the Cleveland area. So you can follow them on Facebook as well. They put all of their beach cleanups up on Facebook. So before I wrap up, I do really want to get a picture. So if people don't mind showing us your wonderful faces. And I'm going to have to take 2 pictures because I can only see half of you. So if everyone, I'll give you a few seconds. If you don't mind turning on your cameras, don't worry, you don't have to. Okay. All right, I'm going to do 1 picture. So everyone smile. 1, 2, 3. Okay, now I don't know who I got in the first one and who I got in the second one. So everyone, you're just going to smile again. 1, 2, oh, I see videos. Okay, everyone smile. 1, 2, 3. All right, thank you so much, everyone. So I really just want to say thank you to all of you for joining and being patient with us throughout this entire process. I'm so happy we were able to get these kits to people. I hope you enjoy them. I hope they're a useful tool for you. And like I said, please feel free to reach out to Sue and I if you have any other questions regarding the kits, need access to resources. We're more than happy to help you. And I really want to say thank you to the NOAA Marine Debris Program for funding, providing some of the funding for these kits. And thank you to Sarah for her presentation today. Thank you to Emily at Old Woman Creek. They did donate some of the items in the kit and then gave us space to put them together. So we really appreciate that. Thank you to Paul, who's been on a lot of the planning calls and is helping us with the boater outreach. I thank you, Paul. And then lastly, thank you to Sue. She's really been the boots on the ground for these kits, picking up most of the stuff that's in them. So just thank you, Sue, for your help with this project. It's been a lot, but these kits have been in my mind for years. And I'm so happy they've been created and given to people and now you can use them. So I'm just really excited and I wish you all a wonderful rest of your week and, just enjoy the nice weather and hopefully we'll see you in person at some outreach events in the coming month. That would just be really exciting. So thanks everyone. There will be a recording. We will send it to you. So if you some people weren't able to attend, or if there's other people in your program that you want to share this recording with, please feel free to do so. All right, everyone. Well, thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thanks, everybody.
Christina. And thank you,